Darkness clung to Josh's bedroom, the faint glow of his laptop screen the only source of light. Three friends, Josh, Mia, and Alex, huddled close, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow. A digital whisper had led them here, a rumor of a hidden corner of the internet where the impossible bled into reality, the dark web.
Are you sure about this?
Mia's voice, barely a whisper, cut through the silence.
It's just a story.
Alex scoffed, though his bravado did little to mask the tremor in his voice. Josh, his fingers hovering over the keyboard, grinned, a mixture of excitement and trepidation in his eyes.
Only one way to find out.
The screen flickered, the familiar interface dissolving into a chaotic mess of symbols and garbled text. A sense of unease settled over the room as a single line of text materialized at the center of the screen. The last click. The website was stark, almost clinically clean. Its white background seemed to hum with an unnatural energy, the black text stark and unsettling. There was a single button centered on the page. It pulsed with a faint red glow, beckoning them forward.
This is creepy.
Mia whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for Alex's. Josh, his eyes glued to the screen, felt a magnetic pull towards the button. He couldn't look away. He clicked. The sound was almost imperceptible, but it marked the beginning of something they could never have anticipated. The world outside the screen dissolved, pixel by pixel, as if reality itself was being rewritten. Their laughter, their apprehension, the room itself all faded into a black void as the website consumed their vision. It was as if the very essence of their surroundings was being swallowed by the abyss. When their senses returned, they found themselves staring at a live video feed. The transition was jarring, like waking from a nightmare only to find themselves in another. It was grainy, flickering, but undeniably real. The image wavered as if struggling to maintain its grip on reality. A young woman, her eyes wide with terror, stared back at them. Her gaze was a silent scream, a plea for help that transcended the digital barrier. She was bound, her struggles futile against the restraints holding her fast. The ropes dug into her skin, leaving angry red marks that spoke of her desperate attempts to break free. Beneath the video, a digital timer ticked down. 60 minutes, each second that passed felt like a hammer blow, a relentless reminder of the urgency of their situation.
What is this? The question hung in the air, heavy with confusion and fear.
Alex's voice was tight, strained with the weight of the unknown, his eyes darting between the screen and his friends, searching for answers that none of them had. A cold dread settled in Josh's stomach, a gnawing fear that something terrible was about to unfold. He had a terrible feeling they were about to find out. The room was thick with tension, each of them grappling with the horrifying reality that was unfolding before their eyes. The minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. The room was filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by the relentless ticking of the clock. Time seemed to stretch, each second dragging on longer than the last. The woman on the screen pleaded, her voice growing more desperate with each passing second. Her eyes were wide with fear, tears streaming down her face as she begged for help. The desperation in her voice was palpable, a raw, aching plea that cut through the silence. The friends watched, horrified, as the timer relentlessly counted down. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with terror, unable to tear their gaze away from the screen. They were frozen in place, paralyzed by the unfolding nightmare before them. At 30 minutes, a change came over the woman. It was subtle at first, a slight twitch of her features, but it quickly escalated. Her skin seemed to shimmer, her eyes darkening as if a shadow had passed over them. Her skin began to crawl, her features distorting into a grotesque parody of their former selves. It was as if something was moving beneath her skin, twisting and warping her appearance into something unrecognizable. Mia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She could feel the changes happening to her own body, mirroring the woman on the screen. The horror of it all was too much to bear. As if mirroring the woman on the screen, her own skin began to ripple, her features twisting in a horrifying reflection. It was as if she was looking into a twisted mirror, seeing her own transformation unfold in real time. Screams filled the room, but it was unclear who was making the sounds. Mia, the woman on the screen, or all of them at once. The cacophony of terror was overwhelming, a symphony of fear that echoed through the dark room.
Turn it off! Turn it off! The panic in the voice was unmistakable, a desperate plea to end the nightmare. Hands fumbled over buttons trying to shut down the computer, to stop the horror that was unfolding before their eyes.
Alex yelled, his voice raw with terror. His eyes were wide, his face pale, as he screamed for someone to do something, anything, to stop the nightmare. The fear in his voice was a stark contrast to the silence that had filled the room just moments before.
I can't get it to work. Why isn't it working? I've tried everything. The screen, it's not responding. It's completely frozen. What do I do now?
Josh fumbled with the laptop, but it was as if the device had become possessed. The screen wouldn't respond. No matter how many times he pressed the keys or clicked the mouse, nothing happened. It was as if the computer had a mind of its own, refusing to obey his commands.
No, this can't be happening. Not now. I need this to work.
The timer ticked down. 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 8 minutes. Each second felt like an eternity, the relentless ticking echoing in the room, amplifying the sense of impending doom. Alex, his eyes wide with terror, watched as Mia was consumed by whatever force was controlling the woman on the screen. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was as if a dark, malevolent presence had taken over, twisting her body in ways that defied nature. Her screams were cut short, replaced by a gurgling moan as her body contorted into an unnatural position. The sight was horrifying, and Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Then it was Alex's turn. He could feel the malevolent force turning its attention towards him, and he knew he was next.
My chest, it burns. It's like fire inside me.
He felt a searing pain in his chest, his breath catching in his throat. The pain was unbearable, as if his very heart was being consumed by flames. He looked down to see his hand, the one he'd used to type in the website's address, turning black, the flesh shriveling as if burned. The transformation was spreading rapidly, and he could do nothing to stop it. He screamed, a primal sound of pure terror, as the transformation spread. His entire body was being consumed, and he could feel his life slipping away.
Help me! Somebody, please! I don't want to die like this. Is anyone there? Please help! But there was no one to hear his cries. The room remained silent, the darkness closing in around him. Alex's fate was sealed, and there was no escape from the terror that had claimed him.
Josh watched, paralyzed with fear, as Alex writhed on the floor, his screams echoing in the small room. The timer hit 0. Alex's screams ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. His body, now twisted and contorted beyond recognition, lay still. Josh was alone.
Oh God, no, Alex.
The website was gone, replaced by his laptop's familiar desktop. He slammed the laptop shut, his heart pounding against his ribs. He had to get out of there, had to get help. But as he stumbled to his feet, he realized something was terribly wrong.
I can't move. What's happening to me? His hand, the one he'd used to click the mouse, felt as if it were on fire. He looked down to see the flesh turning black, shriveling just as Alex's had. Panic surged through him, cold and sharp, as the transformation spread rapidly up his arm. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. He stumbled back, knocking into his desk, sending the laptop crashing to the floor. As he fell, his eyes were drawn to the screen. The website was back. The words "the last click" burned into his retinas. And beneath it, a new timer had begun its countdown.
The next morning, the sun cast long shadows across Josh's quiet street. A neighbor walking his dog paused outside Josh's house, frowning at the unfamiliar car parked in the driveway. It was Mia's car. He remembered seeing it arrive the previous evening, 3 teenagers piling out laughing. He shrugged, figuring they'd slept in. Teenagers. As he continued his walk, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He couldn't put his finger on it, but the silence from Josh's house seemed heavy. Later that day, the police arrived, alerted by worried parents who hadn't heard from their children. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house was eerily silent. The only sound was the faint hum of a laptop, its screen illuminating the darkened living room. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. They followed the sound, their steps echoing in the stillness. In the living room, they found them. 3 teenagers slumped over a laptop, their faces frozen in expressions of abject horror. Their bodies were twisted, contorted, their skin a sickly grey. On the laptop screen, a website pulsed with an eerie red glow. The investigation was quick, the conclusion even quicker, a tragic case of accidental poisoning. The website, the strange contortions, the lack of any logical explanation, all of it was swept under the rug, dismissed as the ramblings of grieving parents. But the truth remained, buried deep within the lines of the police report, hidden from the public eye. The website was real, the consequences even more so, and somewhere, in the darkest corners of the internet, the countdown continued, waiting for its next victims, for the next click, the last click.